Hey guys, I'm Katie, and today I'm going to be making Nimue's Earth Element earrings inspired by the Netflix show Cursed. If you've seen the show, you know that it's the origin story of the Lady in the Lake from King Arthur's tale. There are so many different elements of nature in this show. Fire, water, air. It's so beautiful, and I was inspired to make these awesome gemstone earrings by the show. Let's talk about the tools that you're gonna need for this project. You're gonna need a chain nose plier, a wire straightening plier, a round nose plier, a pair of metal shears, a hole punch, a permanent marker, a file. This is a little triangle file, but a flat file of any sort would work. You're gonna need a nylon drum and a bench block, a hammer, which this one does have interchangeable heads, but today we're just gonna be using the heavy mallet attachment, a pair of ear wires, a flat nose plier, a metal blank, vintage bronze wire in 24 gauge and 28 gauge, 3mm labradorite rondelles, and 2 labradorite beads that are top drilled through the tip, and a cutter. Now that we've gone over the tools you'll need, let's take a look at the construction of these earrings. Over here you can see this pair that I made with beautiful coral teardrop beads that just made me think of fire. And then these lines going across, which is wire, reminded me of water or air. All of these elements come together to create a beautiful little composition that just was really fun to make. Over here you can see I am making a pair in labradorite. And today we're gonna be making the match to this piece. And let me just go ahead at this point and turn the earring around, if that's okay. So you all can see the back. Kind of take a look at the way that that wire comes around the sides and clasps in the back, which we'll get into later. I just wanted you to be able to kind of start thinking about the construction of this piece. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is grab a permanent marker and make a line across the metal blank to know where to cut with our shears. So if you have a ruler lying around, it could be helpful to just get it straight. There's not a lot of measuring. I usually just eyeball where the center is and draw a little line. Now that your line is drawn, you are going to grab your metal shears and make a cut. These shears are pretty cool. They open up here at the back, so you just open that little latch up, and they're spring-loaded, so they're easy on your hands to use. And these like to make short cuts. So you're just gonna work little by little through this metal blank to get across. Just gonna place it towards the back of the plier. And slowly make my way across. Depending on the metal of your blank and the thickness, it can take some power. So now you have 2 little pieces. They do look like half moons, don't they? For a normal pair of earrings, you would use 1/2 for one earring and 1/2 for the other. But since I've already started my pair of earrings, I'll just need 1 piece today. The next step is to flatten out our piece and kind of file the edges, get it into a good shape so we can start putting wire on it. Grab your nylon drum, which is gonna help flatten out your shape without marring the metal. and your bench block here. You're going to need that hammer. Simply place the metal blank onto your bench block here, and then put your nylon drum over that. And I like to use the heavy brass attachment for the hammer for this part. And you can see that flattened it right out. If you want, you can flip it over. There you can see the Sharpie line from my earring. And it is all good and straight, it's okay. The next step we're gonna do is file. And I love to file those sharp corners down just a little bit for safety. If you're wearing these, you don't want that to poke you in the face. So grab a flat file and just lightly round those edges out. Okay, so here is a point where you can kind of make a design choice for yourself. I'm going to pull my earrings flat onto this piece so you can see what I'm talking about. With the first pair, I didn't do any texturing at this point, but on the second pair, I did, because I thought it gave it a little more of a rustic look, kind of like Curse. They have beautiful vintage pieces, and so I thought that the texture looked pretty for that. So you can either do that or not. So to make this texture, you're going to use the very end of your flat file, and it almost is like you feel like you're messing it up a little bit, but you just scratch it. Flip it over, scratch it. I like to go side to side first. And then I like to go up and down in the opposite direction. I do like to hold it a bit closer in when I do this. Normally you might use the handle, but I like a little more control, so I come up close. You're just kind of drawing on it. I'm maybe gonna file the little edges a little bit up here at the top, just to make it look a little bit more rounded and polished. Maybe flip it over, file off some of that permanent marker if you need to. Okay, so we are ready to move on to the next step. So we're done with our flat file now, and we're gonna pick up this tiny little triangle file, which is so awesome. This is actually perfect for this next technique I'm gonna do. We're going to create 4 notches on the side of this piece for the wire to grab onto. And you have to do that because otherwise the wire would just slip around and have nothing to grasp. So we're just gonna make like little notches. And if you've already made your first one like I have, you might wanna just bring it in so you can sort of estimate a similar place to put your notches. So hold your piece pretty tight, and then on one of the little triangle edges, it's probably about a little over 1/4 inch down from that corner. And just, can you see that little notch I made there? It's very small. This triangle file is just perfect for this though. Okay, and then make another one just a little bit below it. And go to the other side and do the same thing. And once more. So now we have 4 little notches, and sometimes I'll just kind of, you know, take my time and get into it and make sure that all the sides of everything are not super jagged. And you can also here take your flat file and kind of smooth those edges back out again. Now we're going to grab our hole punch and make some holes in our metal blank that we just filed and texturized, and let's get started. Here's my hole punch. This is a 1.25 millimeter hole punch, but any size would work as long as they're consistent throughout your piece. So I'm just gonna make a hole here at the top and at the bottom in the middle. Another good time to maybe grab your ruler if you like to measure. I usually eyeball this. If you like to measure though, you can just try to find the center of the top edge. You can even mark it with a permanent marker if you'd like to. I'm probably just gonna hold it with my finger here and eyeball that. All right, and you'll make another hole right underneath that on the curve. Okay, so now that I've got my 2 holes punched, I'm gonna grab my file one more time and just see how there's a little bit of a little edge that popped out of there. Grab a chain nose and just pull that off. And then file just a little bit. All right, first we're gonna grab our 24 gauge vintage bronze wire and do the lines across the piece. This is such a fun way to add wire to metal. And also it looks like mountains, water, air. It's just a really great design for the elements. You'll need I would cut about 14 inches of wire, about a foot, a little over a foot. Cut with your flush cutter. Okay, so you'll take your wire and put it in one of the grooves here. Wrap it across to the other groove. And then bring it behind and into that groove and into the other groove. Just making 2 lines, and that will be the front, obviously. We've got that texture. And you turn it around to the back, and it should look something like that. So where they connect in the back, you're going to twist them up almost like a little twist tie. So you can set your piece down at this point if you want and kind of bring those 2 pieces together and just kind of coil them up. Like that. And once you've got them secure, you can just trim them off with your flush cutter. So what I'm going to use now is a flat nose plier to create the zigzag pattern across the front. Using the flat tip of your plier, you're going to lay it down flat on your piece and just grab the wire and twist. And just grab the wire, twist, grab the wire, twist. And then you kind of go back and reiterate those little zigzags. You can kind of hold one side with your hand. Make them as jagged or straight as you want. And same on the bottom. Just grab the wire, twist, grab the wire, twist, and one more time, twist. So now you have cute little zigzags to go across, and remember on the back, it's tied up like that. If your piece is sticking out right here, you can just press it down, and if, maybe even with a chain nose, kind of tuck those little pieces in if you need to. So the next step we are going to do is wrap our beads onto the piece, and we are almost done. This has been so fun, and I loved this design, and I love labradorite. Labradorite is a beautiful, beautiful stone, and I just thought it was perfect for cursed, but you could use coral, you could use any kind of drop bead that you like. And these are pear-shaped briolets that are drilled across the tip going that way. So when you wrap these, you do a little bit differently than you would do a normal round bead. First, you want to pick some wire that you know will go through your bead. I'm just going to do a little test. Make sure it still goes. Yes, it does. Okay, I'm going to cut about a foot of wire with my flush cutter. And put my bead on the wire just about an inch or two. And then I'm going to bring both of the tails up. I like to create kind of a pretty sharp bend here. And grab a round nose plier. Actually, you don't need that quite yet. I'm just going to make a little coil with my hand. So I'm going to coil the shorter one around the longer one. And just take your time with this and try to stay close to the point of the bead. I do about 3 wraps and then trim off that little tail. Grab your chain nose plier and tuck in that little tail. Okay, and we are ready to make our little loop and attach it to our wire form. With a round nose plier, grab just above that little coil you made, about 1/4 in from the end of your plier. Push it 90 degrees away from you. And then re-grasp just behind that bend and roll it around to create a little loop. The further back you go on your round nose plier, that will determine the size of your loop. So just make sure that you're going to have it big enough to where it will go through that little hole here. So put it on here. Once that's on, make sure that the front of your piece and the front of the bead line up. You're going to grab just above where those wires cross there, it's like a little X. Grab that with your round nose plier and then start coiling down back towards that bead. And see with this one here, I wrapped kind of a lot, so I'm going to try to match that style. I'll show you from the front. So you can even go down over the top of the bead here. Okay. And so I almost wish I had cut a little bit more wire, but it'll be fine. I'm gonna bring this little tail up towards the top of the wrap and hide it, cut it, hide it, trim it, and just kind of tidy up that wrap. Okay, you're also going to want to make sure that your little loop up here is not twisted, so you can use the flat inside of your chain nose to kind of straighten that out if you need to. And we're going to add our little top bead on, which is just a couple of basic coils that if you've made jewelry, you probably know how to do, but if not, if you got through this briolette, then you're going to be fine with this. Just cut another little piece of 24 gauge. So for this step, you'll need your chain nose plier, your round nose plier, and your cutter. And we're just gonna make the first coil to attach to this metal piece, which you'll do with your round nose plier. So just grab the piece of wire, bend 90 degrees away, and then readjust your plier just behind that bend and roll back. Once again, you want to make sure that your loop is going to be big enough to fit on this metal piece. So I can already tell I'm going to need to make it a little bit bigger, which I can do. Open it up and move it back on the teeth of the plier. So now see how big it is. Then you'll slide it on your metal piece. And I like to hold it just above the metal plate with my round nose plier. Grab the whole loop and then make my little coil here. Just do about 3 wraps. Make sure you end it in the back, on the back side of the wrap, and then cut that off. So now you've got something that looks like this. And the next step, slide on your little bead. Like so. And then we are going to make the same kind of little coil on top. So you'll just make your loop the opposite direction. Grab your round nose plier, hold here, just above the bead, bend it away from you, readjust just beyond the bend, roll it around, bring it down. And you can leave your pliers in at this point if you want and just make a few little wraps. And then once you get it back around to the back, you can trim that off with your flush cutter. Make sure everything's nice and straight. And you are ready to attach your ear wire. So these are a pair that I made. And you just take your chain nose plier, open up that little loop, slide it right onto that loop you just made on your piece, and close it back together. And now you have completed your amazing gemstone earrings. Wow, look how pretty these are. So that's how you make Nimue's Earth Element earrings. And let's go over the tools that we used one more time. We've got our flat nose plier, chain nose plier, cutter, metal shear, triangle and flat file, permanent marker, 24 gauge vintage bronze wire, a bench block and a nylon drum, a hammer, round nose plier, metal blank, hole punch, labradorite teardrop beads and small labradorite gemstone beads, and a pair of French ear wires. If you'd like to pick up the tools and supplies I used today, check out the links below. What is your favorite earth element, and what kind of jewelry would you make inspired by it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss out on any future projects. Now that you know how to make Nimue's earth element earrings, you can say, I made this!